Hi, my name is Alina for the ones that don't know me, and I've been teaching for the past 15 years or so. And I will introduce myself first for the ones who don't know me, and then I will speak on the topic of desire and how can we use desire to really fuel our rocket ship to freedom, liberation, and a dream life, as opposed to hate it, annihilate it, make it as something inherently wrong with us. So, how can we use desire in the most effective way? So, first, I'll introduce myself. And as I mentioned previously, I've been working for 15 years with true liberation and freedom. I myself had chased enlightenment, and therefore I know what it feels like to desire a certain outcome. And it took me from a repression or fear of being myself, disconnecting from life, transcending life, finding true freedom on the level of the mind, on the level of the spirit, and having no clue what it looks like moving in the world of form with that newfounded freedom, eventually embarking on the journey of freeing all my traumas and repression through deep somatic inquiry tools by becoming a certified facilitator, then a training assistant, eventually a trainer. And for years, for the last 5 years or more, I worked probably for 6 years. I worked with somatic inquiry, deep somatic inquiry to liberate our traumas, to liberate our conditioning, to liberate everything that is not true about yourself, but you're still actually unconsciously operate under its spell, to liberate the entrapment in time, and to really find what it is you're truly here for. So desire is a very important topic that I would like to cover with that. So I guide women into their freedom now, from repression into full self-expression and eventually financial freedom. It's a full arc of transformation, but about that a little bit later. So let's start with this juicy topic of desire. Wonderful. So desire usually, especially when we come to really work on ourselves, when we come to yoga, when we come to wellness, when we come to our inner worlds, let's say that, is actually has a bad reputation. So desire is something that we shouldn't be having, when, especially coming from religious background. It's not something that we should be having. And desire is something shameful. Desire is something sinful. Desire, when unconsciously ridden, it also is source of suffering. And I can see where it's coming from. And of course, living in a patriarchal world, I mean, thank God, slowly changing. Man's desire was sinful because it would distract them from their connection with God, or then their connection with leadership, or whatever else that they were actually trying to achieve and live. So they were always distracted by desire. So therefore, desire was labeled over the years as something bad, as something that shouldn't be there. Now, going fast forward into the commercial reality, desire became the marketing driver. So any marketer, any strategy of marketing, any ads campaign knows and feeds on desire. So it knows the psychology of desire. So of course it's been hijacked and used in the wrong way. And therefore, of course, we label desire as bad or useless or even worse. sinful. So I want to take you on a little bit of a detour and look at desire from a different perspective. And what I want to say is that the most important part is that desire being unconscious definitely will generate more suffering. But as soon as we can make desire conscious, the sooner we can make the desire intentional, the sooner we can break free from the prison of its shadow aspect. So when we move from the shadow aspect of desire and we move into the pure potential, fascinating power of desire to create realities, to create worlds, like look around you. Humanity is built on desire. If there was no desire, there was no you. If there was no desire, there would not be this world. If there was no desire, there would not be awakening. If there was no desire, there would not be life. Life initial spark is desire to be alive, is desire to experience. The first spark of creation is desire to see itself as a separate entity, looking and marveling at itself from a higher perspective. So the desire is an actual fabric of existence. It cannot not be there. But unfortunately, you see, the unconscious mechanisms of survival, we can call them ego, or the body-mind survival mechanisms, body-mind survival strategies. What happens there, because they operate in the shadow realm, and the shadow realm is just the deep unconscious that you're not always aware of. It's a part of you, it's a dimension of you that is operating on past fear, operating on past rejection, operating on disconnection, operating on being separate from life, needing to survive life. And when the desire, it's in its shadow form. So who then, not me, can actually talk about it? Because if some of you know Jinkies, my life Jinky is 54. And I'm not religious about it, but there is a deep truth to it. It's so extremely precise that I was absolutely in awe when I read my profile. And I would greatly recommend for any one of you not to extensively research and make it the new religion, but understand your blueprint. So in my case, my shadow is greed. So not that I was a greedy person, but greed is the energy of the ego that is so strong that doesn't see anything else in its way but the outcome or the goal or the result it wants to get. But when in its shadow aspect, it's greed. In its gift aspect transformed, it is aspiration. So let's talk about these two. And what does the desire look like in its shadow aspect? And how can it be transformed and transmuted into aspiration? Because although it is, in my case, a life path, meaning that I'm most influenced by those energies, and for you might be something different, but we all have all the 64 influences, all the 64 jinkies within us. So I'm sure you have touched that. I'm sure you're familiar with that. So For those who are familiar with wanting and desire is something so deeply that nothing stops you in the way. So this was me. From the moment I remember myself, I would just get obsessed, absolutely obsessed with the object of my desire. And this obsession would obviously, like we all know, bring me or propel me at least in that direction. Would it bring me the results? In some cases, yes. In some cases, also yes, but brought a lot of pain too for everyone around me, myself including. So when the shadow aspect of desire is still running on the unconscious fuel of unmet childhood needs, on frozen fear, on disconnection, what it tries to do is it tries to get its needs met through the powerful fuel of desire, of greed. So when we are not careful, this can be exhausting. And I am so grateful that it was extremely exhausting in my case, so that I can completely exhaust myself trying to get something from outside that I couldn't get. So where am I leading all this? I'll give you simple examples. I grew up in poverty. That's another good boost for wanting more from life. I grew up in USSR, in Soviet Ukraine. And so for the first 10 years of my life, I didn't have much. And I remember being labeled as thief by my mom, and that stayed with me for a long, long while when I took a little piece of clothing from my cousin's doll because I didn't have any. And then for weeks, I've been punished and villainized for that act. And it really scarred me, right? So it's interesting that those elements in our childhood, they're actually what's going to build the unconscious motivation to try to find something, to try to get something, to try to receive that recognition, to try to receive the validation, to try to receive whatever it is that you're desiring. So later on, we moved to Israel, and later on, we moved to Canada. And so all of a sudden, the whole world opened up, possibilities opened up. Supermarkets were full. And this transition pretty much gave me a lot of things, but also removed my mom from the picture. Here, the first 10 years of my life, I knew her as somewhat absent, but angry when present. And when we moved, of course, immigration, and she was alone as a single mother, and she disappeared into work and surviving and so on. And so there was this absence. So my energy, this greed, this desire, unconsciously so now looking back, I can say what was happening, but I consciously to myself, I actually signed up to tennis classes on my own. There was tennis courts built in my neighborhood. And so I signed up and I dedicated my whole energy on all of my life and all of my hours to tennis. So I achieved very, very quickly. In the first year, I had already maybe, I don't know, many medals and many, I don't even know how to call them, trophies there, many trophies. I basically escalated up until 13 years old to be the top 10 kids in my age in Israel and in the whole country nationally. And why I was doing that. So from one end, you can look, oh, what an amazing achievement. What a beautiful desire to be recognized. And on the other hand, it's a shadow aspect of it. So it's still unconscious. It's still not seen. It's still not really understood of what is going on underneath the hood of our simple everyday existence. There are drivers, there are energies. And so the energy there was my unmet need and the absence of my mom. So I was screaming for attention. Interestingly enough, all the 5 years I played very competitively, traveled all over Israel. My mom never seen me play. And I understand she was busy, and yet she never seen me play. Up until I was, I don't know, 40 something, maybe a couple of years ago, she saw me play for the first time. So why am I telling you this story? I just want to show you how unconscious desire operates on unmet needs. It operates on the frozen fear. My frozen fear underneath my unmet need, which was I am not seen, therefore I am not loved, therefore I am not wanted. So this deficient identity that I formulated around the absence of my mom was the driver of that desire. Now, it's wonderful. It can bring us to places, but at what cost? In this case, there was no cost. There was only benefits. And I was an immigrant kid. I was finding a way to make sense of life or my mom's absence. I gained an amazing skill. I was sportive. I was active. Wonderful. I had friends on the courts. Nothing outside of that, but I did it. I survived. Now, eventually that desire went into relationships. So desiring really this beautiful idea of a relationship that it should be, and then desiring a family. I always was about kids and families and making families, and it's just, and so it was like really going full on into, unfortunately, attracting relationships that really didn't resonate, that like the people that reflected back to me the absence. And so here was a beautiful relationship, then it ended in extreme drugs and alcohol and me being pregnant at 16. So it's like it went on and on and on, and this desire went on and lived so many experiences. And if I tell you my life story, I'm not going to do that, but it would be like many books to write, because it just took me on a ride in so many different directions, and I have so many different diverse experiences. And so eventually what I found, finally having a beautiful relationship that I was looking for, an American dream and a wonderful entrepreneur partner. We've been together for 9 years, and I had the most amazing car and the most beautiful house and all the traveling that I could do, and living in different places in different countries and not working and just being that housewife, enjoying the weekends full on, traveling. I had a kid, obviously, because I gave birth at 16, not together with him. But then I was still so empty. I was still so empty. And you probably know, talking about desire, and I really want to paint the full picture for you. Not that desire is bad, but unconscious desire is an intelligent mechanism to get you into exhaustion, to get you to understand that nothing from outside will fill that hole of, in my case, my mom's absence. Nothing will fill the hole of my repressed emotions, because half of me is missing. My anger was repressed, my shame was repressed, my fear was repressed, my voice was repressed. I didn't know better. Excuse me. So I had to look outside myself. And when that finally got exhausted, because I looked and looked, believe me, I did. What I was able to direct it into, and what a wonderful opportunity and what an intelligent mechanism this is. I turned it into finding freedom. So I directed the desire to be one with my mom or be intimate with my mom, to be intimate with the divine, to be intimate with Mother Divine, with the cosmic mother. So in this case, that intimacy that I was looking for in the actual objects, in my boyfriends and in my relationship to tennis and success and anything else I tried or at least numbed myself with, parties, endless sleepless nights, you name it. And when I started to really aim it to what the desire for love, unconditional love, is actually meant for, it's actually meant for waking you up. The longing we feel to be one with, the longing we feel to be loved, to belong, to be validated, to be seen, to be acknowledged. So that longing is the most powerful fuel that can bring you exactly where you can find yourself more free of that same need, or I call it neediness, childhood unmet need for to be fulfilled from the outside, from people, from others. So when you turn this onto yourself, onto the divine, and you really find the connection, the true remedy that we're all trying to heal from is this connection. So when that fuel that is looking for shiny objects, more things to add to me, relationships to add to me, and all of those things to add to me. So when you can fuel that and go inside and onto your mat and onto your meditation cushion and onto your prayer and onto that women's group, or whatever it is for you, or onto that exercise or that specific diet or that specific, fasting routine, whatever it is for you. In my case, like nothing would fulfill me from the outside. And for me, it was closing my eyes, getting onto that cushion, and directing that energy, that longing, that desire, that desperate inner cry, the desperate inner cry. No longer with the toys that my mom brings me, my cosmic mother, that life brings me. No longer the rattles and the shakers to kind of divert my attention. Here, child, play with this. Here, play with this. Play with this. At that point where nothing satisfies you and you say, no, I don't want this rattle. No, I don't want this pacifier. No, I don't want this bottle of milk. I want you. You and nothing else. And so when you have that, when you're blessed with that, when you suffered enough, when you saw that desire based in shadow doesn't bring any satisfaction, just a temporary band-aid, a temporary relief from the desire itself. And just for that temporary moment when you get that new car, when you get that new dress, when you get those new earrings, like for a moment, like, finally I can rest. And there comes the next one. And then comes the next one. So turning in that desire, that longing, in my case, to unite and be one with Kali, the goddess that severs the heads of desire. Not because they're bad, but because to free yourself, you have to be one pointed with one desire to liberate yourself. And so that doesn't mean that worldly things won't come to you. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be literally bathed in abundance, in creativity, in life beyond your wild imagination of that kind of a beauty, that kind of a satisfaction. But in that moment, everything I had to do is to surrender everything to her, to surrender every single desire. And if I was not, she was there to chop my head off. What do I mean by that? It's like not to chop my head off to prevent me from having or experiencing a life, but it's to help me stay one-pointed and focused on the one most important desire of lifetimes. And so that I can be focused on this one specific desire, being exhausted and disillusioned by the world of form. There was the ability to be so one-pointed that everything else started to orchestrate itself from the inside out. The opportunities, the people, the traveling to specific magnitude places such as Arunachala, Tiruvannamalai, books, specific teachings, everything started to orchestrate itself into my arms, into my lap, into my dedication, commitment, one-pointedness. So now this greed was used in its right way. Now this greed was directed into enlightenment and nothing else. And nothing will ever satisfy me. So I was blessed by this path. I was blessed by Kali. I was blessed by hours of meditation that I spent in this longing to connect, this longing to feel the vast void that she truly is, the vast desireless void that she is, that life is, that existence is, that you are, that I am. So fast forward here, I was deprived of everything. So I said yes to something, not because I had a choice, not because I had a choice, but I said yes to something, and that saying yes to something so radically important on my path eliminated all other desires. And it was literally waking up to nothing, to being absolutely emptied. When everything shifted, you are deprived of everything. Your whole worldview, the way you attach to certain ideas about yourself, the way you attach to certain roles about yourself, everything is taken away. So when everything is taken away, there is a grieving process. Some people call it the dark night of the soul. Everyone have their version of that. There is a bigger magnitude version of it. There is a smaller ones, but it's pretty much losing your world, letting it all fall apart. And so when everything was empty in about 2 years, it took 2 years to empty. I wouldn't say completely without desire. I was left empty, but that doesn't mean that life was not operating on a drive of some kind. It was a learning curve for 2 years, how to operate now when the ego has no longer an agenda. So it was different. And then that my shadow passing into my gift of aspiration, slowly, slowly, step by step, was revealed. And the issue is with aspiration and moving into the world of form without the ego anymore, my body, and that's another place, the body was still conditioned. The operating fear of being me was still there. Here I am, the vast ocean of existence, without any desire. And here I am as the body of Alina, absolutely conditioned and still carrying the fear. Mind totally silent, body in repression. So I build you a terrain of desire and where it's leading, but also a healthy version or aspiration. We can look at that. And so aspiration, when the desire is no longer operating from our unmet needs, and that's why years of somatic inquiry came into my life, and really clearing every little tiny bit of shadow left over had to come, clearing all the shame, clearing all the deficient identities, clearing all the repression was an absolute important element to freedom, because here the desire to express what I found was so profound, and yet my body was so repressed. So here riding a desire with our body being repressed and still living in the past of frozen fear, repression of self, fear of being me, then the desire to evolve or desire to share our spiritual insight unfortunately gets hijacked again and again by the fear of being me. So maybe some of you can relate to that. Probably you are gifted amazing insights into your journey, amazing insights of transformation, amazing insights of magnitude that can change the world. And here you are, the carrier of this magnitude, here to share it with the world, and yet you are still hiding. And yet you cannot act on that desire. And what starts happening is the desires of the shadow realm, right? The one that Kali cuts heads off. They come in and they masquerade as true desires. So when that starts happening, when it masquerades as true desires, taking your attention away from what seems so difficult, and it seems so difficult moving into the world of sharing your talents and sharing your gifts, not necessarily with the world. It could be with a stranger. It could be with your child. It could be with your parents. It could be being more honest and more sincere and more transparent with your partner. It can come in different ways. But here you are, called this evolutionary tension that you feel. When I say evolutionary tension, it's an aspiration. It's an aspiration to be something that you're evolving into, to be your authentic voice, to be your unrepressed self, to be the soulful leader, speaker, mother, daughter, partner. To be that is what you're being called to. So again, we're touching here with desire, but now this truth is your soul. And when desire comes from your soul, it's aspiration. Aspiration for the world to evolve, aspiration for you and everything around you to be in harmony, aspiration to live from your heart, aspiration to awaken humanity, aspiration to be the change you want to see in the world. So when aspiration meets trauma in your body, I call that evolutionary tension, where your body still stayed in the shadow, in the past, and your aspiration to share the insights, to really move forward into the world of form and express yourself as your poetry, as your dance, as your songs, as your meditations, as your medicine, whatever it is. Women, you are so powerful beyond measure, but we are so repressed. We carry generations of repression in our bones and in our flesh and in our cells and in our energetic imprints. It's not the blueprint of who you are, but it's the imprint that was, passed down to you. It's the repression of patriarchal way of living, not because it's wrong, but because consciousness was evolving this way, because they were stronger and they could dominate over us. And that's not a feminist speech. It's just the fact that finally the magnitude that was waking up within us as women, the connection to the divine, this aspiration, this nurturing, this depth that we carry as women, as the creators of life, as barriers of seed and creators of another human being. We were gifted these beautiful, magnificent abilities to bring into the world of form, to transform reality as we know it. And we were shut down. We were dominated. We were repressed. We were bound. We were exiled. We were dumped down. So this aspiration in you that you feel, and I know you do, the true desire. And that true desire, it's not just changing the world, it's being yourself, and while being yourself, to live in abundance. Because, hey, goddesses, we are meant to live in abundance. Life itself is abundant. Not just with experiences, but also with things, also with riches, also with money, also everything that money can bring. And money is not evil. And it's just a way of exchanging one person's energy with the other person's energy. One person's value of themselves and mastery over money with the other person's value of themselves and mastery over literacy of finances. So coming back to the evolutionary tension that we feel, it's when everything in you woke up to remember, and the body is still living in the past. So the body is still hijacking all the memory and the energies and the sabotaging energetic ways of survival, those unmet needs playing out. They are the ones that hijack and take you out of true aspiration, true change in your life, and give you these temporarily, as I told you previously, the rattles and the pacifiers and the shakers so you don't cry. Numbers, it's to numb. So those desires, the little desires, the greedy desires, the noisy desires, they're there to distract you. They're there to just numb you temporarily until again something happens and again you feel that evolutionary tension, the need to evolve and the need to shed your past, the need to deconstruct the shadow, the need to be the light, the need to be full without the fear of being you. Be the magnetic resonance that you are. that attracts the right kind of people, right kind of relationships, the right kind of beautiful environments to live in. So here it is, and let's wrap it up. How can you find within yourself what is a greedy desire based in unmet needs and what is a true aspiration? And so when I say true aspiration, that is a holy grail. That is grace manifest. And that is what I'm inviting you into. Because operating from that space of temporary rewards, temporary hits of completion just for that brief moment, I'm not saying that some of those things you desire are wrong. Believe me, I love my toys and I love my car and just upgraded my awesome BMW, and I'm about to move to Spain, and I am about to live in the most gorgeous place on earth that is definitely a wealthy place. I'm not saying that those things are wrong. I'm just saying that when they are chased from the emptiness of unmet needs and repressed emotions and disconnection and frozen fear, they are simply there to distract us from the actual deep meaning of life. And then if we, for a moment, even if we are already living within those riches, if for a moment we can start noticing that none of those things that I bought, none of those things I chased actually fulfilled me. Whether it was experiences I'm chasing, spiritual experiences I'm chasing, whatever it is you're chasing, that seeking mechanism that is never satisfied, that is built on emptiness, on this void that you will never be able to fill from the outside. So when we call upon Kali to come in and chop those heads off and replace all those tiny demons with herself, with the fulfillment of being plugged back into source, when that comes in, and I'm not saying in this grandiose way, in your own way, and I'm sure you had those moments. And then when you have this insight that you feel like you want to bring into the world, which starts to taste more like aspiration and not a greedy new thing, then everything will be added onto you. Then you don't need to chase all those things. They become an available playground where you can effortlessly play without grasping on anymore to anything, because none of those things are actually defining you, the vastness and the existence and the totality of you. Because when we relate through our body and conditioning to the outside world, it feels like we're this tiny speck of existence battling against reality, trying to survive, trying to acquire, trying to accumulate, trying, seeking. But all of that, I'm saying to you, it comes from repression, comes from disconnection from source. So what is needed? Meditation, devotion, discernment, dedication, perseverance, right tools. I wish I had the somatic toolkit that I mastered over the years and been training and certifying people for years now. I wish I had it 10, 20 years earlier. But I'm so grateful that I found it when it found me. Somatic work, not shallow somatic, but deep repression work. So deep unconscious work. Yeah, connection to the divine, discernment of where's the desire and where's an aspiration, and deep inner work. So this is the only way to move forward. I hope you learned something. And I am very excited, and thank you so much, Suzanne, to invite me on this wonderful summit with this juicy topic. It's so up my alley, and it is my, life gene key. And I am so grateful to be able to ride the desire all the way through, from the shadows, through the shadows, into my gift and into my CD, which is Ascension. If anyone wants to find my work, it's womanunbound.com. The website is being built currently. It's just my website got down and I lost 15 years of work, unfortunately. But fortunately and unfortunately, it's just because a new stage is upon me to truly step into my Dharma. So I offer this path, the spiral path, a lifetime membership within the trajectory of first starting with somatics and devotion and into manifesting our legacy from repression to self-expression and financial freedom. So this is me. Thank you so much. Wishing you all the curiosity to look, to discern, to start questioning, to inquire, to continue moving through this wonderful, miraculous existence we call life. And may you find your freedom too. Much love.